Nityananda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, everyone. The torture can conclude, and we'll let His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj take it over. So Maharaj, if you will, the floor is yours. Maharaj, you're currently muted. There you go.
I will begin by saying the Mangalacharana prayers and leading a short kirtan. And then we will speak about Srila Narottam Das Thakur, whose divine disappearance day is today. And I would request the participants on Zoom, as far as possible, to put on your cameras so we can see your faces, and it will be more personal. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhakta Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Prajakacharya Stotra Sutasi Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Prajakacharya Stotra Sutasi Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So today we are celebrating Srila Narottam Das Thakur's Divine Disappearance Day. Srila Prabhupada said of him, Narottam Das Thakur was a great devotee, acharya, in the disciplic succession of Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the disciplic succession who are coming down from Lord Chaitanya. This Narottam Das Thakur has written many songs, and they are recognized as authority by all the Vaishnavas. He has sung the songs in simple Bengali language, but the purport and the deep meaning of the songs are very significant. Srila Prabhupada also said, quote, the prayers of Narottam Das Thakur, this sound is above the material platform. It is directly from the spiritual platform. And there is no need of understanding the language. It is just like a thunderburst. Everyone can hear the sound of thunder. There is no misunderstanding. Similarly, these songs are above the material platform, and they crack like thunder within your heart. Srila Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai. So, bring the conchal in that picture. Or here, yes. Sure. Just getting a picture of Narottam Das Thakur. So here, here's a picture of Narottam Das Thakur. And I also have a special conch shell that was sent by Narottam Das Thakur to Vrindavan. The history of the conch shell and how it came to me is that every year for many years, His Holiness Indradumya Swami would come to my ashram in Carpinteria, California, just after Gaur Purnima. And then he and I would go together to Laguna Beach, to the Panchatattva temple for the regional Gaur Purnima festival. And Srila Narottam Das Thakur's appearance day is not long before Gaur Purnima. And so that one year I had the picture of Narottam Das Thakur on my altar. And when Indradumya Swami saw it, he told me that after the Khetri festival, which we'll be discussing in a little while, well, at the Khetri festival, 6 pairs of Radha Krishna deities were installed. And one pair was Radha Braj Mohan. And that pair was sent to Vrindavan. And the temple of Radha Braj Mohan in Vrindavan was not very well known. And Indradumya Swami sort of discovered it for ISKCON devotees. And then he and his party would visit regularly, and they would give donations. And the temple was very poor. So when Indradumya Swami saw the picture of Narottam Das Thakur, he told me about the temple. And he asked me, he told me how poor the temple was, and he asked me if I would donate. So I made a pretty good contribution. And the pujari of the Radha Braj Mohan temple gave this conch shell to Indradumya Swami, which he in turn gave to me. And the history is that Narottam Das Thakur had a disciple in Vrindavan who was worshiping the deity, Radha Braj Mohan. And Srila Narottam Das Thakur sent paraphernalia for the worship of the deity. And included in the paraphernalia was this conch shell. And as Indradumya Swami says, we don't know. The conch shell might have been blown by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, might have been blown by Srila Srinivasacharya, might have been blown by Janava Mata. It's possible, we don't know. But we do know that it was sent personally by Narottam Das Thakur to Vrindavan for the worship of Shri Shri Radha Rajamohan. And it has two pitches, a high pitch and a low pitch. I don't know if I should blow it, but. So yes, that's the nutshell that Narottam Das Thakur sent to Radha Brajamohan. So now we will come to the story of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So yes, Narottam Das Thakur is a great acharya, spiritual teacher in our Gaudiya Vaishnava spiritual heritage. One of the great acharyas of our sampradaya, particularly after the time of the Goswamis. The Goswamis were direct disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and there are 6 who are especially famous, but there are others who were also present during that time, such as Bhugarbha Goswami and Lokanath Goswami. Then after them was another generation of acharyas who continued the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and particularly 3 are prominent: Srinivasa Acharya, Shyamananda Pandit, and Narottam Das Thakur. For our line of spiritual preceptors, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada. Narottam Das Thakur is most prominent because he is the Parampara Guru of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. As described in Bhakti Ratnakar, during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, at one point when Mahaprabhu was in Kaituri, which is now Bangladesh, he started to call out, Narottam, Narottam. Nara Uttama means topmost man, just like we have Nara Singha, man lion. So Nara Uttama is the topmost human being. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't have any associates named Narottam. So the Vaishnavas asked him, who is this Narottam? Who is this Narottam who you are glorifying and whose name you are chanting? And Mahaprabhu replied that in this place, in the future, a great acharya would appear and continue the Sankirtan mission for all of us. At that time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his bath in the Padma River, which is right by Kaituri, and he invested his spiritual potency with Padma Devi. Padma Devi, the personified deity of that river, appeared before him and he gave her charge of his prema and instructed her to keep it for him until that time when Narottam would come and take his bath in the river. And when that should happen, she should give that prema to him. So she asked, how will I recognize Narottam? So many people come to take bath in the river. And Mahaprabhu replied that when Narottam comes, the river will be overflooded with love. And so it happened, as Mahaprabhu had predicted, that many years later, within a Kayastha family in Keturi, Kayasthas are not royalty, but they are aristocracy, a high-class Vaishya community, like kings. So as a child, Narottam was born with all the symptoms of a Mahapurusha, a liberated soul. There are symptoms, features of bodily physiognomy, and one can read the personality of a person by their physiognomy. So this person had all the physical symptoms of a greatly elevated soul. And the Jyotish, the astrologer, came to read the chart. And he said that this was a very great personality. He would be a very great man, and he would be honored and respected by all for his great learning. But great care should be taken because there were indications of madness. You should be very careful, the Jyotish said, that he not go near water, rivers, streams, ponds. Keep him away from such environment. Otherwise, he could become mad. And so the child's parents were very careful to raise him and keep him away from such bodies of water. And they were successful for quite some years, until one day he had a dream that he must immediately go and take his bath in the Padma River. So in the middle of the night, Narottam got out of bed, ran down to the river, and dove into that water. Padma Devi appeared and gave him the prema that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had left with her for him. And he became completely transformed. He became filled with transcendental ecstasy and manifested the Astasatvika bhavs, the eight symptoms of transcendental ecstasy. He started to cry, his hair was standing on end, he was trembling, shaking and shivering, calling out, Krishna, Krishna, calling out the name of Krishna, calling out the name of Gauranga again and again. Then he returned to the bank of the river and fell unconscious. He was going between consciousness and unconsciousness, exhibiting all the symptoms in the middle of the night and calling out, Krishna, Krishna. So the people came running. They heard some commotion and they came running and found that it was the son of the king. He had gone mad. So his parents came. They thought all these years, we were endeavoring to keep him away from the river. But now we have been unsuccessful. Just see, the prince has gone mad. So they kept him inside the palace. They were trying to cure him. They brought a very qualified physician, a Kaviraj. He felt Narottam's pulse and diagnosed the madness. The disease was there. And his parents asked him, will you be able to cure him? Will you be able to save him? And he apologized. I am very sorry, but there is no cure for prema, for love of God. I cannot help you. And so Narottam's parents became very worried. Narottam was just crying for Krishna. He wanted to see Krishna, to meet Krishna, to be with Krishna, to serve Krishna. He was filled with love for Krishna and for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nityananda Prabhu appeared to him in a dream and instructed him to go. And so, again, in the middle of the night, he got up, walked out of the house, and just started walking toward Vrindavan. Along the way, he had another vision of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, instructing him to learn from Jiva Goswami, who is in Vrindavan writing his transcendental literature. So Narottam went to Vrindavan and took shelter of Srila Jiva Goswami, who taught him the science of devotional service, particularly the Bhagavatam. The science of bhakti is taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by Srila Sanatana Goswami, by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Jiva Goswami is famous in Gaudiya Vaishnava history. And he's famous as the most systematic of the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There were two other students, comrades, with whom Narottam was studying, Shamananda and Srinivas. And there are wonderful stories about these other two personalities as well. But today we are focusing on the glories of Srila Narottam Das Thakur. After some time in Vrindavan, Narottam became very attracted to the personality of Srila Lokanath Goswami, who is sometimes called the seventh Goswami. When Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was writing Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, he went to the six Goswamis individually and asked, please give me your blessings. I'm going to compile Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Please give me your blessings. And so they all individually gave their blessings. Shri Radha Madan Mohan also gave their blessings with the falling of their flower garland. And he went to Lokanath Goswami, who was one of the first of the Goswamis to arrive in Vrindavan on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He and Bhugarbha Goswami arrived first, before Rupa, Sanatan, Raghunath, or Gopal Bhatta, sent by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were actually from East Bengal, Bangladesh, and finally, after giving up their responsibilities in East Bengal, they came to Navadvip and said to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, now we are surrendered to you. We just want to stay with you and serve you here in your Sankirtan mission. I want you to go to Vrindavan, he told them. So very reluctantly, they dragged themselves away from him and settled in Vrindavan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had two missions, many missions, internal and external. But of his external missions, the preaching of the chanting of the holy name, and then in Vrindavan to rediscover the pastime places of the Lord in his manifest pastime 5,000 years ago. So Narottam was entrusted to the Goswamis, beginning with Bhugarbha and Lokanath Goswami. Narottam became very attracted to, very inspired by Lokanath Goswami. When Kaviraj Goswami asked Lokanath, please bless me to write Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lokanath Goswami said, yes, you have my blessings, but you must not mention my name in the book. And so Kaviraj Goswami was bound by this instruction that he couldn't mention Lokanath Goswami's name. And thus it doesn't appear, although he was contemporary to the other Goswamis. So Narottam approached Lokanath Goswami and requested, please accept me as your disciple. Please give me Diksha. But Lokanath Goswami refused. No, I'm not accepting any Diksha disciples. Please do not entertain this thought any longer. It is not possible. Narottam was heartbroken. He approached him again and again, and repeatedly Lokanath Goswami refused him. He tried to render different services to Lokanath, but Lokanath always refused those services as well. Finally, he took it upon himself to clean the area of the forest where every morning Lokanath Goswami would answer nature's call. Narottam would keep water there. And in this way, he was rendering very, very humble and intimate service to Lokanath. And this went on for a whole year. Lokanath didn't know who was doing it, cleaning the place and keeping water there. One day, Lokanath, who was very old, decided to hide himself in the forest to see who it was that was doing this, which from his perspective was humiliating. And when Narottam came and started to clean the area and make different arrangements, Lokanath called out, "Who is there?" "It is I, Narottam Das, your servant." "Why are you doing this? Don't do this anymore." And Narottam fell at Lokanath's feet and said, "Please accept me as your disciple." Lokanath Goswami was also requested by Jiva Goswami to accept Narottam. And he had also received other indications that he should make one exception to his rule, not to accept any disciples, and he should accept Narottam Das. And so it was that he gave initiation to Narottam Das Thakur. Thus in Narottam's song Guru Vandana, which we sing daily during Guru Puja, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma, at the end, we have Lokanath Lokera Jivana. May the glories of my spiritual master be spread all over the world. Lokanath refers to Lokanath Goswami, and the literal meaning of Lokanath is Lord of the world. And so he glorifies his spiritual master. And indirectly, he glorifies Jiva Goswami, who was his Shiksha Guru. After some time, the Vaishnavas of Bengal, headed by Janava Mata, the wife of Nityananda Prabhu, requested Jiva, please, you are there in Vrindavan. By that time, Rupa, Sanatan, Raghunath Das, Raghunath Bhatt, and Gopal Bhatt had all left. Jiva was younger. He was the nephew of Rupa and Sanatan. And so he was the head of the Vaishnavas in Vrindavan. So Janava Mata requested him, you have all these wonderful literatures written by the Goswamis. In Bengal, we are deprived of this nectar. So please make arrangements that we can have this nectar in Bengal. And so Jiva had all of the books transcribed and then told his three prominent students, Narottam, Srinivas, and Shamananda, go to Bengal and spread the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, spread the teachings of the Goswamis everywhere. He graduated them as his students and gave each different titles. Srinivas became Srinivasacharya, Shamananda became Shamananda Pandit, and Narottam became Narottam Das Thakur. They were given their degrees and sent out preaching with the books. And so the three traveled from Vrindavan to Bengal by bullock cart. Along the way, different adventures took place, including all the books being stolen by a king who was also a dacoit, a thief. That's another story, a great calamity. All of the books were stolen. What to do? But they were retrieved after much endeavor, and the king was made into a Vaishnava by Srinivasacharya, who stayed in that kingdom and initiated thousands of disciples, establishing Gaudiya Vaishnavism there. Shamananda Pandit went on to Orissa, where he established Vaishnavism far and wide and established temples everywhere. His headquarters were in Gopi Janaballapur. He also initiated kings. And Narottam returned to Keturi, where his cousin had become king and inherited his family's wealth. Narottam came and sat under a tree outside the village. And when the people saw him, they exclaimed, "Hey, Narottam is back." The news spread that Narottam had returned and had become a great acharya and devotee and sadhu. So thousands of people flocked there for his blessings. His nephew also came and laid his fortune at Narottam's feet. Narottam didn't accept, of course, but he did have his cousin build a beautiful temple in Keturi and use his wealth to organize the first Gaur Purnima festival. For that festival, invitations were sent all over India. Wherever there were Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, messengers were sent with invitations. And so for Gaur Purnima, a huge camp was set up with accommodations and prasad for thousands and thousands of Vaishnavas. All the present acharyas and mahants of that time came, and for days there were discussions of Krishna Katha and Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy and Siddhanta. Because all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas were so spread out in different places and quite isolated from one another, there were different understandings. But through this meeting and istagosti and discussion, together they were able to discuss and understand things in a common way according to the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Goswamis. Janavama presided over the assembly as the honored chairperson. During the day, they would discuss, and then in the evenings, they would have wonderful kirtans. Narottam Das Thakur, of course, many of the bhajans we sing today are his compositions. He had a very, very beautiful singing voice. He was a very expert transcendental musician. He developed his own kirtan called Garan Hati. And our kirtan style is taken from that Garan Hati style of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Not exactly the same, but derived from it. There are other kirtan styles that are more ornamental and extensive in their articulation of the syllables, more meditational. But this is faster moving and shorter, more suited to the common mass of people that chant and hear and take the Maha Mantra and the different songs that are there. So all of these great personalities were in these wonderful kirtans. Narottam led the kirtans and his followers played the instruments. And in the middle of one of these kirtans, many exalted devotees, not everyone, but many, saw the Panchatattva appear dancing in ecstasy. Hundreds of devotees saw this with their own eyes. And so an indescribable ecstasy flooded everyone's heart. That Panchatattva appeared in the kirtan and were dancing in great ecstasy and reciprocating with the loving affection of the Vaishnavas. Narottam Das Thakur initiated thousands of disciples, including many caste Brahmins. This invoked the anger of the caste Brahmins because Narottam was a Kayastha, a Vaishya. How could a Vaishya initiate Brahmins and be their guru? This was their caste consciousness. Obviously, Narottam didn't think much of this Brahmin by birth philosophy, and neither did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, the caste Brahmin communities wanted Narottam punished for this offense, going against Dharma, going against Vedic injunctions. And they went to the king and told him, "You are the king, the protector of Dharma. You have to punish this heretic for his misbehavior. He has gone against Vedic injunctions, and you have to uphold the Vedic injunctions and punish him." The king replied, "Well, how can I be sure that what you are saying is true? I'm sure he has his explanation as well. Let us take all the leading pundits of the region and debate with him. And if he loses the debate, then we can punish him." And so it was that the king set out with an army, not only of soldiers, but also of pundits, toward the place of Narottam Das Thakur. While they were on the way, however, some of Narottam's leading disciples got wind of what was happening, and they didn't want their guru to be disturbed by this unnecessary debate. They were regularly debating with these caste Brahmins, and they had had enough of it. They didn't want Narottam to be disturbed by the arrogance of the king and the army and the pundits. So it's a funny story, but two of Narottam's leading disciples set up a shop along the way, selling commodities that a traveling party would need: leaf cups and plates, clay pots, things that they could use for eating. Some of the king's people came into the village, and the shop was at the entrance to the village. Oh, there are plates, there are cups, they said, and they went over and asked, what is the price? The shopkeepers responded in very high Sanskrit. And so these Brahmins were impressed. Oh, how do you know Sanskrit? What do you mean? The shopkeepers asked. Everyone here speaks Sanskrit. The caste Brahmins heard the perfect compositions of sentences and pronunciation of Sanskrit words better than theirs. And then and there, the shopkeepers started to debate with them, first about Sanskrit and then about language and logic. And the pundits were feeling very uneasy that these shopkeepers are so learned and eloquent. We shouldn't be embarrassed by them defeating us, they considered. And so they left and reported to the king that it appeared that there were very, very learned people in that area. Even the shopkeepers were such great pundits. Imagine how the pundits themselves must be. So they decided not to humiliate themselves and avoided the encounter with Narottam and his disciples. There was one great pundit among the caste Brahmins who were causing trouble, Ganga Narayan Chakravarti. He went and debated with Narottam, and Narottam defeated him, and he surrendered and became Narottam Das Thakur's leading disciple. There was another great personality, Ramachandra Kaviraj, who was a disciple of Narottam's associate Srinivasacharya. And Narottam was very, very attached to his association. They were so intimate that they would eat from the same place. They were constantly together. In one song, Narottam wrote, Ramachandra Sangamage Narottama Das. Narottam Das always desires the company of Ramachandra Kaviraj. These two personalities, Ganga Narayan and Ramachandra, were very intimate. Ganga Narayan was a disciple, and so he went in one way to the northeast, to Manipur, to spread Krishna consciousness all over Manipur. Even to this day, in every town and village of Manipur, there are Gaudiya Vaishnava temples with Radha Krishna deities, Gaur-Nitai deities, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. Everyone wears Gaudiya Vaishnava tilak, even though they don't know exactly what it is. This is all due to the preaching of Narottam Das Thakur's disciple, Ganga Narayan Chakravarti, and with him was Ramachandra Kaviraj. At one point, Srinivasacharya decided that he would go from Vishnupur, where he had recovered those stolen books, to Vrindavan to see his guru, Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And he wanted his disciple Ramachandra Kaviraj to go with him. And so he sent a note to Narottam. I'm going on this pilgrimage, and I want my disciple Ramachandra to come with me. Narottam was heartbroken that his intimate companion, friend, and associate was going. Ramachandra had to go. It was the order of his guru. And after Ramachandra left, Narottam became internally absorbed. And when they were in Vrindavan, Srinivasacharya left his body, entered into samadhi. And almost immediately thereafter, Ramachandra Kaviraj also entered into samadhi. When the news came back to Narottam Das Thakur's disciples in Kheturi, they were in a great dilemma. they had to inform Narottam that Ramachandra had entered into samadhi. But at the same time, they knew that if they informed him, he would also enter into samadhi. So it was very difficult for them, but they had an obligation. Their guru would want to know, and he would be angry if they didn't inform him. So they informed him, and predictably, he felt completely lost in the absence of his dear friend and associate. He entered into samadhi, and so, full of woe, his disciples started to prepare the funeral pyre. They were placing his body into the funeral pyre, and some caste Brahmins came and started saying, "Just see this Narottam. He made such an offense of initiating Brahmins, and now the Lord has punished him justly by killing him." They were speaking in this way. The disciples were so hurt hearing this harsh criticism of their guru. Ganganarayan Chakravarti and the other disciples started to pray. "Dear Narottam Das Thakur, this person is criticizing. Surely they are paving their way to hell. Will you not give them your mercy? Will you not deliver them?" This was a very elevated prayer, rather than thinking, will you not kill them or punish them? And so Narottam came back to life, sat up on the funeral pyre, got down, and initiated those Brahmins. They paid their obeisances to him and completely surrendered to him, and he initiated them. But he was still grieving the loss, the departure of Ramachandra Kaviraj. And so sometime later, he was taking bath in the Padma River with his disciples and instructed them, "I want you to pour water over me and don't stop." And so they poured water over him, and he started to melt, to turn into milk actually. And as they were pouring, he was dissolving. And so it was impossible for them that here we are the ones who are causing our guru to disappear. But at the same time, we have been ordered not to stop. And so with tears in their eyes, they continued to pour the sacred water over him. And their guru was dissolving, turning into milk. Someone took a loda of that milk. And if you go to Keturi to this day, you can see the temple with his deities were installed during the Gaur Purnima festival. And you can see the Dud Samadhi of Narottam Das Thakur, where that milk was placed into Samadhi and a memorial was constructed. Srila Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai. So, my dear devotees, thank you for joining us on this auspicious occasion of Srila Narottam Das Thakur's Divine Disappearance Day. And now, if there's time, we can open the floor for reflections or questions. Nitai Gaur Sundar Prabhu, shall we do that?
Yes, Maharaj.
So
First
now,
of all, I would like to thank you for giving us darshan of Kancha of Narottam Das Thakur. So kind of you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
You carrying the lineage of Narottam Das Thakur, giving us mercy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So now if any of you have any questions or comments, reflections, you can raise your hand, your physical hand or your virtual hand. We have devotees from all over the world. Oh, there's a hand raised. He's going by the name Hare Krishna, but his actual name is Vishal Patel from Houston. Hare Krishna, Vishal.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the prayer, Shri Guru Vandana, Narottam Das Thakur writes that the spiritual master is the Lord birth after birth.
Yes.
How does that relate? Let's say, like a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. How does that work as far as, then somebody would have multiple Lords birth after birth? And how does it work like that? Like, for example, if I become your disciple, then you're my Lord birth after birth, as well as Srila Prabhupada, or how does that work?
Well, if I'm your Lord, means if you accept me as your spiritual master, if I'm your Lord, and if Srila Prabhupada, and I'm your Lord birth after birth, and Srila Prabhupada is my Lord birth after birth, so that means that Srila Prabhupada is also your Lord birth after birth. There's no contradiction. In fact, here it's said that everything that exists in the material world also exists in the spiritual world in its original pure form. So once I asked Srila Prabhupada's disciple, Pradumya, this is just after Srila Prabhupada left, we have pride in the material world. So what is pride in the spiritual world? And Pradumya Prabhu replied that pride in the spiritual world is that I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. I'm the last in the line. So my pride is I'm the last in the line. I have the most masters to serve. So that is our pride. We're the last in the line. And we have the most masters to serve.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. All right, so if there are no more questions or comments, we can end now. We can conclude by offering Vaishnava Pranam. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees who can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Wonderful class. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Krishna.
Namo
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for that. Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki jai.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj,
Wonderful
thank you so much,
program.
Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Wonderful program, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Raj Maharaj ki jai.